Hey there, my name's Aidan, and if you're new, then welcome to the channel, and if not, then welcome back. Now, over the years, I've spent way too much time fixing things, repairing things, building things, and occasionally swearing at stripped, rusty bolts, and trying to convince myself that one more tool is all I really need. After all, having the right tool really is half the battle. So in that time, I've found a handful of tools that I keep coming back to again and again. So today, I'm showing you my top 10 garage and workshop tools. So if you're just getting started, or if you're looking for an excuse to buy just one more tool, then stay tuned because this is the video for you. So starting at position 10, we have my 3D printer. Now this is a Creality K1, but its primary use isn't really in the garage or the workshop, but every now and then it does come in handy for making custom fixtures, custom jigs, or even custom small parts, which otherwise would be either impossible to source or just work out much more expensive to buy. So that's why it's in position 10, because it's not really something I use regularly in the garage or the workshop, but every now and then it really does pay for itself by enabling me to get exactly the part I want or need within a matter of, well, sometimes as little as an hour or less, depending on how big the part is. In fact, the tripod that I use for most of my YouTube videos is actually 3D printed as well. So just another thing that you can make with a 3D printer. Now in position 9 we have my lathe. So this one is a Taig or Pitol Micro Lathe 2. I think both companies produced the same lathe. I don't know whether they were each serving different markets, but I believe it's the same product, and I believe it's still available to buy today. Not entirely sure on the cost, but I will leave a link in the description below where you can check that out. Now this is a very small benchtop lathe, and as such has its limitations, but every now and then it really does come out to save the day. So it's really useful for modifying things and obviously making small parts from scratch as well. So recently I used it to modify and install some bearing savers on my boat trailer, which was slightly too tight a fit, so I just mounted them in the lathe and turned them down slightly. So a really useful tool to have. Not one I use too regularly, hence why it's fairly low down in the rankings, but when I do need to use it, there's not really much else that I could use to achieve the same job. It's not really a beginner's tool, but as long as you respect the dangers and educate yourself a little bit before actually using one by perhaps watching some YouTube videos or reading about it, or even better, attend a sort of metalworking or turning course or something, then it can be a really, really useful tool to have and really opens up some possibilities, as I say, for machining parts from scratch or modifying existing parts. Okay, so the next tool might help to reduce some of the swearing that's often produced when you're removing rusty or seized bolts and screws. So this little black box contains our number 8 position, and it is a very, very useful tool. It is one that I don't know how I lived without before I bought it. It's basically a manual impact driver. When I say manual, I mean as in not the cordless electric impact driver, and not an air-powered impact wrench or cordless impact wrench, but it serves a similar purpose. You've got I think it's a 3/8 drive on the end and a bit holder. So bit holder goes on the end, and then you can put a variety of bits. We've got a selection of them, so there's some Phillips type flathead and hex type for Allen screws as well. And the way this thing works is it's on a sort of cam, so if you watch as I push this down, you can see it starts to rotate as well. So essentially, when you come up against a stubborn fastener, bolt, screw, whatever, you obviously put this into the head of the screw as you would with a normal screwdriver. Make sure that this is set to L, so you can see the arrow there, so this bit basically rotates. So it can be used for tightening and loosening. I don't know why it says R for tightening, but whatever. Generally this is used for loosening bolts. So what you do is make sure it's set on L, put the bit into the head of the screw, and basically give it a nice tap with a hammer. What that does is it creates an impact that not only drives the bit into the screw, but also rotates it as well. So you've basically you're achieving two things. You're making sure that you've got good engagement between the bit and the screw, so it's less likely to strip, and you're also giving it a nice sort of sharp burst of torque, if you like, which will help to break free any corrosion that's holding the screw in place. So it's a very, very handy tool to have, especially if you're working on older stuff or stuff that's outside, for example, where the screws are exposed to the elements and likely to be rusty and rusted in place. Now the next tool I'm going to show you, which is number 7, is just as happy at home helping with DIY home improvements or in the garage helping to fix cars. Okay, so number 7 we've got my DeWalt multi-tool. Now this tool is really, really useful, and it's not higher on the list because it's not something that I use all the time, but when I do use it, it really, really saves a lot of time. So typically I use it for a bit of sanding and cutting, and that's kind of it really, but normally when I'm using it to cut especially, it's because I can't get a normal hacksaw or an angle grinder or something into the place where I need to cut. So prime example was underneath my convertible BMW when I was doing the brake pipe replacement. Check out that video if you haven't already. I'll stick a link to that video somewhere on screen now. And yeah, so when removing the old pipes, I had to basically cut the brake pipe, and I probably could have used a hacksaw in a couple of the scenarios, but using this just saved so much time. And also when I was doing the exhaust, so I didn't make a video of this, but I had to replace a section of the exhaust, and where the two sections of exhaust meet, there's a flange with 3 bolts, and basically those bolts were completely rusted together. So no way that I could have loosened them using normal, sockets or spanners. So I had to cut through them, and I couldn't really get an angle grinder in there. And if I was to use a hacksaw, it would have taken me hours. So this thing cut those hours down to minutes, and yeah, really saved a lot of time. And as I say, also can be used for sanding. So essentially it can be used in place of, I would say, a detail sander. So I don't have a cordless detail sander, so this is basically my cordless detail sander. It might not give the best finish in comparison to an orbital sander, but it certainly gets the job done. Very versatile tool, very useful to have. So if you haven't already, I would suggest getting yourself one of these. Alright, so now we're up to number 6. Now this one is a little bit different because it's not really a tool as such. I mean, I suppose it is, but in any case, let's take a look and I'll explain why I think it's worthy of the top 10. So this is my number 6, which is a bench vise. You could call it an engineer's vise. It's a really, really useful tool to have on your workbench. So this one's a record number, I think it's a number 3. Yeah, record number 3. Yeah, so as you can see, the jaws are 4 inches wide, or approximately 100mm. So yeah, definitely a handy size. So it's not too big that it takes up too much space, but also it's big enough to do most things that you'd want to do on a DIY basis. So it's got a wide variety of uses, from holding things. You could use it as an anvil if you really had to. You can use it as a press. You could use it to bend metal as well with the right sort of jigging. So yeah, really quite a few things you can use a vise for that you might not initially think of, but definitely worth having a good quality, solid bench vise. And they can be picked up pretty inexpensively. So I think I paid, £20 in the UK for this one at a boat jumble, which is a bit like a car boot, I suppose. So yeah, definitely something that's not too expensive and certainly pays for itself. Okay, so next we have another tool which might help save you some money on that garage swear jar. So this is my impact wrench, and this is again, as all these tools, it's a really useful tool to have, certainly in the garage. If you're doing work on cars or other vehicles, then I think this really is a must-have. So it took me quite a few years to convince myself to buy this. I've sort of always wanted one, but never really could quite justify the expense. But once I bought it, I am so glad that I did. So there was a specific job that I bought this for, which was adjusting a boat trailer that I bought. So I bought a boat trailer secondhand a couple of years ago, and it wasn't quite set up right for my boat. So I was laying under the trailer with the boat on it as well, trying to undo this bolt with a really long breaker bar. Still not getting it, still no joy. And I thought, do you know what? Why am I struggling? Why am I struggling? So I just went out and bought this, and so it seconds, and I mean seconds, it undid that bolt in seconds. And ever since, I've just kind of kicked myself for not buying it sooner. So I think this one goes up to 600 Newton meters. You can buy bigger ones with more torque, so if you're doing more heavy duty stuff, probably worth looking at some of the bigger ones. And of course you can get air powered ones as well, but you need a pretty decent compressor to run those. Plus you then have a air line coming out of it, so not quite as portable and convenient as a cordless one, but definitely worth having either cordless or air, or even corded. You can get mains powered ones as well. This also has a few different modes, so you've got I think one is just a lower torque setting, mainly for tightening. 2 is higher torque, and you've also got a bolt mode. So essentially, as soon as the tool detects that the bolt breaks free, it basically slows down just to kind of give you more control, so that the bolt doesn't come flying off. And there's also a I think this is like a lag bolt mode, for mainly for tightening bolts that go into wood. So you can sort of see that it's got a sort of coarser thread on the icon there, a bit like a sort of almost like a wood screw. So that's what that one's for. So one advantage of having a cordless one is that you get those additional modes, and you also get a nice work light as well. So quite handy to obviously see what you're doing. Very, very important. May not do some of the heavier duty stuff, but for most DIY garage work, I think this is a really good tool. Alright, so this next tool is my multimeter. So this is number 4 on my list. And the reason it's number 4 is because I do use it quite regularly. So again, working on cars or doing DIY home improvements. I'm not going to go into full details of this because I have actually done a sort of quick review video on this already. So if you haven't seen that, check that out, and I'll put a link to it on the screen somewhere. So I like this multimeter in particular because it actually comes with a backlight. So if I cover this little sensor up here, we can see that automatically the backlight on the screen comes on, and it's nice and bright. The screen's nice and easy to read. This one in particular also has a built-in torch, which is not massively bright, but in a pinch it will certainly get you by. So yeah, as I say, very useful tool, something I do use regularly because I'm often working on various different things. So I used it to diagnose a fault on a generator. I think that was the first thing I actually used this particular unit for. So it's got a capacitance tester, which is what I used, and found out that the capacitor on the generator had failed. So if you're interested in that and seeing the diagnosis and repair process using this multimeter, then please check out that video also on my channel. Okay, so this is another sort of electronics related tool, but again, working on cars and doing other repairs involving electrics or electronics, ultimately you're going to need to do some soldering. And this tool is one of my favourite tools, I'd say, purely because of how convenient it is. So let's take a look. So this is an iRoda, I think that's how you pronounce it, Solder Pro 120. And as you can see, it could do with a new tip, but that just shows that it does get used. So it's a gas soldering iron, meaning that you don't need to plug it into the mains or to put any batteries in there. And what I like about it is the fact it heats up really quickly. So you can see in there the catalyst is starting to glow as it heats up. You've got control over the temperature there. I mean, obviously there's no temperature readout, but yeah, useful to be able to control it regardless. And yeah, it's just really, really convenient to use. As I say, no need to plug it in, no batteries, just normal butane lighter fuel. And you can use this obviously on the car, on the boat, you know, just away from your main supply. The good thing with this particular soldering iron, it comes with a variety of different attachments. So we've got a hot knife, a heat gun, and then a couple of different soldering tips. You've also got spare orifices there for your gas jet, a little cleaning sponge, and it also comes with some solder. And I've also included a bit of my own leaded solder there as well. But yeah, definitely a versatile tool. I think more recently I've used it as a mini heat gun for doing heat shrink. So you can, I think I do that on one of my videos where I replace the rectifier on my boat. So check out that video if you want to see this tool in action. I haven't actually done any soldering with it for a while, mainly because I haven't needed to, but yeah, it's definitely one of my favourite tools. So that's my number 3. Okay, so this is my number 2 spot. So it's a bit of an obvious choice, I suppose, because a cordless drill is something that I think everybody who does any kind of DIY, whether it's home improvements or working on a car or whatever, I think everybody needs a decent cordless drill. So this is my number 2 spot. It's a DeWalt DCD 778. Basically, it's got 2 speeds. It's a hammer drill as well. It's got a light. It's got different torque settings for obviously driving screws. But yeah, it's a really nice drill to use. It's pretty well balanced, obviously depending on what size battery you put on it. But yeah, in general, I mean, the battery lasts for ages, even the small one, and yeah, I really just can't fault it. A corded drill is great and serves, you know, I would say a slightly different purpose because they typically run at higher speeds. So I do have a corded drill as well, but it's not really on my top 10 list because it's just not as versatile as a cordless. I think just because of how versatile it is and how much of a must-have it is, I think it really deserves its number 2 spot. So yeah, cordless drill, if you haven't got one, get one. On to my number 1 spot. So this one is maybe not what you'd immediately think as the most useful tool, but for me it's just paid for itself so many times over. So I think it really does deserve the number 1 spot in my opinion. So let's take a look. So this is my number 1 garage stroke workshop tool. I would say it's more of a garage tool than a workshop tool, but regardless, as I say, it has paid for itself so many times over. I just don't know how I could live without it. So this is my socket set. It's a Halford's Advanced, I think it's 120 piece or something, I can't quite remember because I've had it for so long, but essentially it's a socket set. So it's nothing too exciting, but I don't think any garage or workshop should be without a decent socket set. It is more focused at the DIY mechanic, of course, but I don't think you could do any job on a car beyond maybe changing a headlight bulb without using a socket set. And having a decent quality one is just really helps, because not only is it just nicer to use, but the tools last longer, and yeah, it's just nice, you know. I mean, it's Halford's Advanced, and I think they do make some really nice tools. So ratchets that are nice to use and hold up to years of, I wouldn't necessarily say abuse, but certainly years of use. So I've not had anything go wrong with this, touch wood. Actually, that's a lie. This thing, which is the sort of magnetic bit holder, if you like, for holding your bits that you always end up losing. Anyway, this is what you use for mounting these on something like this. So that's quite a handy tool as well. But yeah, so basically you use this to hold your screwdriver bits, but unfortunately, yeah, it's not magnetic anymore. So I think in my case, the actual magnet inside has fallen out. Now, Halford's does offer a lifetime guarantee on their tools, including this socket set. So I could, if I actually remembered to take it with me, I could take this back to Halford's and get a replacement. And I'm pretty sure, from what I've heard, it will be without question, without any issues, they'll just replace it. Okay, so that's my top 10 garage or workshop tools. But what about yours? Did any of your favourites make the list? Let me know in the comments. I'd hate to be missing out on any must-have tools that I definitely need to add to my collection. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, it really helps out. And if you want to see more, including how I actually use these tools in real projects, then make sure you're subscribed. And don't forget to check out my other videos on the channel whilst you're here. That's all from me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.